All right, today we're going to decode the market's daily moves. This one is for anyone who's ever sat there watching the screen and just wondered, why did our stock market suddenly go completely haywire? We're going to break down the global clues that the pros watch, giving you the tools to finally understand these sudden shifts. Okay, let's get right into it. So, picture this. You're watching the charts, everything seems to be ticking along just fine, and then, bam, out of absolutely nowhere, there's this massive dive, or a huge surge. You're frantically checking the news, looking for a reason, but there's nothing. It feels totally random, right? But what if I told you it is? You see, the key thing to understand is that the Indian market isn't operating in a vacuum. It's not on its own little island. It's part of this deeply connected global network. And those sudden moves you're seeing, a lot of the time, they're just ripples from what's happening in major markets on the other side of the planet. So let's start at the very beginning of the trading day. Actually, let's start before it even begins, because the first and maybe the most powerful clue about how our day is going to start shows up while most of us are still asleep. For this one, we've got to look to the west. The first indicator you really want to get familiar with is the Dow Jones, or the DJI. It's simple, really. Just like we use the Nifty 50 or the Sensex to get a quick pulse check on the Indian market's health, the Dow Jones does the exact same thing for the US market. It is a critical global benchmark. And the connection here is, well, it's pretty hard to miss. Just look at these patterns. When the US market moves down, we often follow. When it moves up, we tend to do the same. And it's not just us in India. A huge chunk of the financial world takes its cues from what happens in the American markets. I mean, a perfect, if pretty dramatic example of this was during the early days of the COVID crisis. Before the pandemic had even really hit India in a big way, our market was already hitting lower circuits, forcing trading to stop. Why? Because the American market was in an absolute freefall, and that global fear spread to us instantly. So here's the crucial point. Before our market opens up at 9:15 a.m., just take a quick peek at how the Dow Jones closed the night before. If it had a strong positive finish, that's a pretty good sign that our market might open with that same positive vibe. If it closed deep in the red, well, you might want to brace for a rocky start. This is your first piece of intel for the day. Okay, so that gives you a nice heads up for the opening bell. But what about those sudden whiplash moves that happen during our trading day? The ones that really catch you off guard? For that, we need to tune in to a couple of live, real-time indicators. While our market is active, there are two main global forces you'll want to keep an eye on. The first is something called US Futures, and the second is the opening bell of the European markets. Let's break down what each of these means. Now, you might be thinking, wait a minute, the main US market is closed while ours is open, and you're absolutely right. That's where futures come into play. The easiest way to think of US futures is like a live preview of the American market's mood. It tells us in real time if global traders are feeling optimistic or pessimistic hours before their market even opens. And look, you don't need to obsess over every tiny little tick here. What you're really looking for are the big, sudden shifts. If you see US futures suddenly plunge or shoot up significantly, there is a very, very high chance you're going to see our market react to that news almost immediately. It's a powerful live signal. Now, after the initial morning session, things might feel like they're settling down, but then, right around lunchtime here in India, a whole new set of major markets wakes up and starts to make its presence felt on the global stage. You can see that critical overlap right here. Our market is in full swing when the European markets kick off their day, which is usually between 12:30 and 1:30 p.m. our time. This moment right here can often be a major turning point for our entire trading day. The opening trends of these big European indices, Germany's DAX, the UK's FTSE, they can inject a powerful new wave of sentiment. If they all open strong, all in the green, it can give our market a second win for the afternoon. But if they open weak, well, they can drag our market right down with them. So we've covered what to look for before the market opens, what to watch in the morning with US futures, and how Europe influences our afternoon. Now let's just put it all together into a super simple daily playbook you can start using right away. Here it is, your 3-step daily checklist. It's so easy. 1. Before our market opens, just get your bearings from how the US market closed. 2. During the day, keep one eye on US futures for any big, sudden shocks. And 3. Around noon, just see which way the wind is blowing when Europe opens its doors. That's it. This simple routine gives you a framework to understand the global story behind our market's moves. And with these cues, you're no longer just passively watching the market do its thing. you're starting to understand why it's moving. You can actually connect the dots from a headline in New York or an economic report from Germany right back to that chart you have on your screen. Look, this isn't about having a crystal ball to predict the future. It's about being an informed participant instead of a confused spectator. The next time the market makes one of those sudden, crazy moves, you'll know exactly where to look for the clues. So, now that you can read the global signs, what do you think you'll see tomorrow?